Greetings, dear listener. I hope you're sitting comfortably. Are you ready for a charming and light-hearted story? Today, I'll tell you the tale of the Princess and the Pea, a delightful, classic and whimsical tale that reminds us that true nobility and authenticity often reveal themselves in the most unexpected ways. It's a story about subtlety, sensitivity, and finding the truth beneath the surface. So, settle in, relax, breathe, and let's begin. The Princess and the Pea by Hans Christian Andersen. Adapted as a short story to relax to and read by John Donaldson. Once upon a time, there was a prince who dearly wanted to marry a princess. But not just any princess. He wanted to marry a real princess. So he travelled far and wide across the kingdom and beyond, visiting palaces and meeting many young women who claimed to be princesses. However, no matter how lovely they were, something was always missing. He couldn't be certain if they were true princesses, so he continued his search. Each time he returned to his castle, he felt discouraged. "Where will I find a real princess?" he sighed, sitting by the window, gazing out over his kingdom. His mother, the queen, sympathized with him, but she too had high standards. She believed that only a true princess, someone of noble birth and delicate nature, was worthy of her son. One evening, a terrible storm raged across the kingdom. The wind howled through the castle's windows, and the rain poured down in sheets onto the castle's roof. At this time, there came a knock at the castle door. Thump, thump, thump. The sound echoed through the large stone halls. The old king, curious himself as to who would be out in such an awful storm, went to the door and answered it. Standing in the doorway was a young woman. She was drenched from head to toe, her clothes clinging to her skin, and her hair soaked and tangled. She looked miserable, but she stood there with dignity, chin held up, and when she saw the king, she smiled a beautiful, warm smile. "I am a princess," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "Please, may I stay here for the night? I am terribly cold and wet." The king raised his eyebrows and immediately took pity on the young woman. "Of course, my dear child," he said. "Come in, come in." He led her inside, and soon the young woman stood before the queen and the prince. When the prince saw her, he gasped, and his heart skipped a beat. Despite her bedraggled appearance, there was something about her, a dignified posture, a quiet grace, but also a kindness in her eyes. Could she be a real princess? The queen, however, was not so convinced. Anyone could claim to be a princess after all. She had to be sure. "We shall see if she truly is a princess or not," the queen thought to herself. And so, without a word to anyone, she prepared a test. That night, as the castle maids led the young woman to her room, the queen sneaked in and placed a tiny pea beneath the mattress on her bed. Then she ordered the maids to pile 20 more mattresses on top of it, followed by 20 thick, soft feather quilted blankets. The bed towered so high that a ladder had to be brought in, just so the young woman could climb into it. "Here is your bed for the night," called the queen from the bottom of the ladder, but with a sweet, friendly smile. I do hope you sleep well, my dear." The young woman thanked the Queen and settled into bed. But, despite the softness of so many mattresses and the warmth of the cozy blankets, she could not get comfortable. All night long she tossed and turned. There was something hard underneath her, somewhere, something that dug into her back no matter how she shifted. By morning she had not slept a wink. She climbed down from the enormous bed, rubbing her tired eyes, and was met by the Queen, the King, and the Prince. "Did you sleep well, my dear?" the Queen asked, though her tone was curious rather than kind. The young woman hesitated, but then chose to answer honestly. She explained that she had hardly slept at all, and that there was something in the bed that had pressed into her back all night. She didn't know what it was, but it felt as though she were lying on something very hard and very small. She then arched her back and stretched and sighed that her whole body was bruised. The Queen's eyes lit up. She clasped her hands together in delight. "Only a real princess could have felt the pea through all those mattresses," she exclaimed. You see, only someone of truly noble blood, someone with such a refined nature and delicate sensitivity, could be so affected by something as tiny as a pea under so many layers of bedding. The prince, overjoyed, took the young woman's hands in both of his and whirled her around. He had found his real princess. She had passed the Queen's test, not with grand displays of riches or royal titles, but with her pure and gentle nature. Soon after, the prince and the princess were married in a grand celebration that was attended by all the people of the kingdom. The Queen herself approved wholeheartedly, for she now knew the princess was truly worthy of her son. As for the pea, it was placed in a crystal case in the Royal Museum, where it remains to this day, and if you ever visit, you may still see it, although it is so tiny that you might have to squint to spot it. And so, the prince and the princess lived happily ever after, their love strong and deep and true, for though it took something as small as a pea to prove it, the princess's gentle spirit had won the heart of her prince forever. The end.